to another edition of the Sustainable Scoop. My guest today is Mike Dietrich. He's the founder of Renew and Sustain Consulting. He's also a best-selling author and an award-winning filmmaker. But today, we are going to talk about the very unique work he does, greening and building sustainable schools, particularly one of the projects he did in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I think our viewers can tell right off that for someone in an emerging industry that's just beginning to develop, you're very young. So tell me, how did you get involved in this field? Tell me about just how did it start? Right.
Well, about 15 years ago, I started doing some research, and I worked with a dean from my school at Plattsburgh University. We went down to Mexico and we were doing research in a sulfur cave, which was fantastic, but then it was the first time I got to see something about ecotourism and how humans were impacting this precious ecosystem. Fast forward a couple years, I started working with the National Science Foundation on a fellowship, and I got to study the upland Adirondack watershed, where it was about management and the effects on the watershed and how we're impacting the riparian zone. So I was a little frustrated with constantly seeing this impact. So I took a step back, and then I got into the construction industry, looking at safety, quality, how we're installing our utility lines, looking at blueprints, looking at foundations, why we're building the way that we build. And I did that for about 2 years, and then the economy tanked, and I got laid off. Well, I guess it didn't tank, but it slowed down, and I got laid off. And then that's when I started my own business, trying to figure out how to create a better balance between the environment and people. And that segued into going to Africa and seeing larger scaled systems, doing environmental impact assessments, working with the federal government.
Can I just brag on you for a moment? You were recently at the Green Festival in Washington, D.C.,
right,
and you were lecturing on the topic. So you've got a real global view,
right,
not just from your travel, but your experience. You're headed to L.A., San Francisco, Portland, and one of the focuses is on benchmarking and schools. And why is that so important?
Well, as I was saying, from that federal government position, I segued into working with DC public schools and overseeing the sustainability of that modernization program. And that has segued into figuring out how we can categorize where we are in the building process, how to quantify that, go back through during construction, and then follow up with commissioning. And through that process, we can streamline efficiency.
But it's such an expensive thing to do, to build a new school or even to do upgrades. So how did you convince the people in D.C., I mean, school systems are strapped, to invest that much money? And tell us about the Dunbar project.
Right. So part of that process is looking at your return on your investment. So if you put up shade walls, you can reduce the tonnage of the HVAC system. If you increase insulation, you can reduce the tonnage of the HVAC system. So you can do this line-to-line transfer. Dunbar, for example, is now rated the greenest school in the world.
Congratulations.
Yeah, well, thanks to an entire team for making that happen. I'm only one player. It was definitely a large effort by everybody involved.
Tell me some of the upgrades or the special things about Dunbar that makes
Sure.
it number one.
It's the highest LEED-rated newly constructed school in the world. Yay!
Congratulations.
So that's fantastic.
Remarkable.
91 out of 110 points.
Wow, that's remarkable.
There is, on the south wall, there's shade walls. So there's light shades that shade the building. On the west side and off the gym, they're vertical. So the building was oriented in the right way in order to maximize the benefits, which segue into daylighting. Having all that natural light come in, having the ceilings that are sloped. Those sloped ceilings then are using a daylight harvesting system in the lights, so they're dimming down by the windows to have an optimal 35 to 50 foot candles, and we're using about 0.8 watts per square foot in energy for that lighting system.
You're also generating energy, are you not?
Yeah, we are. So Dunbar was the first power purchase agreement in the history of the District of Columbia, which has segued now into a 10 megawatt power purchase agreement procurement that is underway. So the solar panels on top are generating about 400 kilowatts worth of energy.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I noticed when I watched some of the footage of the work that you did at Dunbar? The tremendous pride. It's so interesting how you have to convince people to do these things, but then when they finally do them, it's a source of personal value to them and the community. And not just Dunbar, but you've also helped the community. Bike share.
Right, we incorporated a bike share program right over there on New Jersey and N Street. We worked with the council members who are working with the community. We also opened O Street, which has 6,000 square feet of rain gardens to absorb all the water from a rain event. This is a great example of how we can redevelop our landscape.
So what I think is really important is that people understand that someone like you who comes in and consults can do this for schools, you can do it for companies, you can do it for entire communities. So how do people reach out to you to learn more about your consulting firm?
Well, there's the online, so renewandsustain.com, and we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
They got to read your book, too, your
That's right.
best-selling book.
On Amazon.
Absolutely. So guests, please do look up Mike Dietrich's book. I want to thank you so much, Mike, for joining me today. I hope you'll come back because there's a lot of topics to discuss.
Yes.
All right. I want to thank you, viewers, for watching The Sustainable Scoop. I'm Miriam Gennari. Back to the news desk.